Hello, good morning to my lecturers and fellow students. Today we'll be presenting about the Asian culture for the Global Marketing Management subject. I'm Kamarudin Mansor.
I'm Junho.
My name is Arvind Raj.
I'm Alex.
Thank you.
And before we go further into the presentation, there will be a short video. Enjoy. Hello, so this is the introduction to the Asian culture and the global consumer. Okay, company must be able to understand how consumers behave and position the product accordingly, because most practitioners apply marketing concepts in the region developed from the Western perspective. And in this presentation, we will explore further in the difference between Asian and Western consumers and the marketing issues as well as the ethics. Why focus on Asia? Because Asia is home to many of the world's best economics as well as containing 50% of the world's population. Okay, these are the main themes in Shoot. Okay, the assumption that global consumer is universal. But according to Shoot, he disagrees because to him, consumer behavior is strongly influenced by regional culture. Okay, in current time, global products are being pushed through standardization because it's cheaper for company to do that instead of to adapt. And by a research by Bray in 2011 suggests that companies should emphasize the adaptation of their marketing mix, which mostly the global products are not being done. For Asians, by buying certain products, their intention is to express who they perceive themselves to be and what their role is in the society. Whereas Western customers seek self-expression, and Asian tends to be more to seek social status within the group, where Western consumers are more individualism. And Westerners are concerned about the features and the monetary function of a product, where Asians are more sensitive to social risks, which means that they are the most self-image consumer in the world, and they are prone to take less risks in being innovators in trying new products. Next, I will pass it to my group mates.
So I will talk about the question for, do you believe that the author's comments are valid and useful? My first answer is Yes. According to the author's comment, the luxury product becomes more selective among the Southeast Asia. This is because many Asians start to have higher income and seeking for the status to fit in their social. So let's take a look for the Maslow hierarchy of the needs comparing between the Western and Asia. So the first one is Western culture. So the needs of the Western, they start from the physiological needs until the end, the self-actualization. However, compared to Asia, they starting also at the physiological needs, but at the end, they are seeking for the status needs. So here's the table for the individualism, the power distance, and the uncertainty avoidance for the Hostit survey research. So at the index here, it shows that the Western country that has higher index of individualism compared to the Asian country. So here's the list of the country. So we can see that collectivism is on top here. So the PR, China, Korea, Taiwan, and Singapore. So the individualism is bottom here, UK, USA, and Australia. But my second answer for do you believe the author's comment are useful is no, because according to Seo and Pham, that they say that Asian culture is still in its infancy, that the culture is actually the confluence of cultural tradition that are characterized by the inner differentiation, the complexity or the mutual influences in the Asian region and beyond that. So Asia prior to modernization had its own deeply rooted culture. According to Duan Dolikia, they found out that the tradition value of the Chinese tradition is losing ground. Here's an example for the tradition value. The generation gap, example the number 4. Chinese are actually care about the number 4, but the younger generation, they actually just don't very care about that one. So next I will have to pass to my member.
Okay, now I'm going to answer about the question that is the article well researched. First I will answer is yes, because the article has done a comparison between the Western culture and the Asian culture. Like inside the article, it has stated that Asian culture that it was a collectivism, and while on the Western culture it was a individualism. And next, I would say that it was not well researched, because the article should research more about the culture of both Western or Asian culture recently, because the year passed by, the culture will keep on evolving until, and it was inside the shoot, it doesn't have any reference that say that about the current culture of the Western and Asian culture. Next. Okay, is it the sufficient academic in character about the journal article? First I would say yes, because there are some point in the article that we can use as a reference to bring out ideas to how to do an assignment. And inside the article also have stated that discuss about the product diffusion, which means that product diffusion is for example, like a family, it was controlled by the parents. Like whenever the child wants to do something, they will need to ask the permission from the parent first, and then if the parents say that it's no, you need to follow the order. That's called product diffusion. And I would say no, because both of the Western culture and the Asian culture that article has researched might be out of date, just like I said just now, because this research is quite long ago, which means that it did not have stated any recent Asian culture or Western culture inside this article journal. Okay, next. Does this author provide enough evidence for his view? On my opinion, I think it's no, because there are no recent evidence about how would an Asian culture purchasing behavior. Like Asian culture inside the article say that Asian culture would buy like something like collectivism, but the collectivism, I don't think so, because nowadays Asian culture does not follow the as the author said, it's concept. I think it's keep on evolving. It's more toward to individualism. And next, does not next does not show the generation gap. Asia is not universal culture, and some country different developing phase, which means that, as I said just now, the Western and Asian culture is keep on evolving and it developing a different phrases years and years pass by. Okay, next I will pass it to my group mate to continue the presentation.
Hi. So today I would like to explain on the diffusion theory. So this is according to Rogers. So what happens is, when a product is introduced, there are certain groups of people who actually react to the product's release, and there are actually 5 groups of people, different types of people. So when a product is released, there are a group of people who are called innovators. Innovators, people who actually take the risk of trying out the product as they have high spending power, and they've got quite a lot of influence in the society. And once they actually use and utilize the product, and then comes in the early adapters. The early adapters are the people who also have a certain amount of high spending quality and a social status, which are actually amongst leaders and public figures who people actually listen to. And then comes in the early majority, which comes in a little later. They take a little bit more time to use, to get convinced to use a product or service. Then 34% of the people actually are also late majority, which come in a little bit more later, which take a little bit more convincing to actually use a product. And then come in the laggards, which are really late into the product. So after all these people have actually used this product, so these people come at the end. And when they use the product at the end, so that's why they call the laggards. So they've come in really late into the usage of the product. And next, okay, diffusion of innovation in an Asian context. So in Asia, diffusion is influenced by 2 factors, which is Fairism. Fairism, what I would say is, Fairism is how we've been brought up. It's basically coming back to culture, how we're brought up. So we take decisions on using a product or service depending on how we're brought up. And then there's conspicuous consumption, where you're influenced by your peers, and of course, like my groupmate said earlier, social status. Next. Okay, so there's Rogers' 5 factors of diffusion. Relative advantage. So when they actually can relate to a product, is when it's called the relative advantage. So people who actually relate to the product. And then there's compatibility. People actually look at compatibility. Is it easy for them to use the product or not? That is it compatible or is it not? That's one type of the people that actually is part of the 5 factors of diffusion. And then there's complexity. Okay, certain people take pride in using complex products, as it's a social status as well. So using a complex product, it gives them that confidence. Oh yes, I'm able to use this product or not. And then there's trialability. Trialability, meaning what I would say is that people want to try the product first. They're taking the risk to try the product, so which actually gives them trialability gives them I would say after they try the product, they actually will want to use it more or not. It's up to them after that. And then there's observability. They observe what people are doing first. Once people actually use the product, and then they start using the product after observing how it's done. Next. On the other side, Hofstede's cultural dimensions, which is totally different from what Rogers has actually said. So, there's individualistic or collectivistic. How personal needs and goals are prioritized versus the needs of goals and groups of an organization. So certain people do it for themselves. certain people do it because of their peers. So that's the two differences between here. And then there's masculine and feminine. Of course, men have different needs and wants, women have different needs and wants to a certain extent. And that also defines what products they actually buy and what they actually don't. And then there's uncertainty avoidance. Certain people are uncertain about products, so they want to avoid the uncertainty. So certain people have a low uncertainty avoidance, and some people actually have a high uncertainty avoidance, which actually affects how they're going to buy it or not, or if they're not going to buy the product. And then there's power distance. So power distance, okay, the degree of people are comfortable with influencing upwards except of inequality and distribution on power in society. So using a certain product gives certain people a certain amount of power among their peers. For example, it's a belief that using an iPhone gives you more power than someone who's using a Samsung. To certain people, it depends on their perception towards the product because of the product's exclusivity and other things. And then there's time perspective. Some people want to buy products which are long term, which can be used for long term. Some people want to use products which it can be said as short term. So long term versus short term. Some people might want to buy, the short term products might be a little cheaper, but it doesn't last for long. And there's indulgent and restraint. Allowing gratification of basic drives related to enjoying life and having fun versus regulating it through strict and social norms. So certain people do it for themselves because they just want to have fun. They want to live their life like how they do it, like how they want to. And some through strict social norms. People's perception towards how you behave, people's perception towards what you wear. This actually decides on what they actually want to wear, what they want to buy, what they want to eat. So this is the difference between indulgence and restraint. So these are actually the differences between Hofstede's cultural dimensions and Rogers' cultural dimensions. Next, okay, there are 4 limitations of the diffusion theory. Evidence for this theory did not originate in public health. It does not foster a participatory approach, and also it works better with adoption of behaviors rather than the diffusion theory. It doesn't take into account an individual resource or social support. So these are the 4 limitations of the diffusion of the innovation theory. So next, I would like to thank you for watching our presentation. Thank you.